Okay, we look like we're good to go. Thank you, everybody. Welcome to our CKAN workshop as part of a pre-event to CSVCon. This is amazing. I'm so happy to be here because for me, CKAN is really like a love letter from some humble developers to these incredible works that the data scientists, data librarians, the data nerds we all love are doing. And that's why I really like that we're doing this as part of CSVConf. The conference is, it's light, it's playful. It makes people ask, like, well, why would you have a conference about a text file format? What's going on with that? And sort of like the vibe is still, it's very much CKAN. We're using simple tools. We're trying to access the most people possible. And I've been lucky enough to be part of a number of in-person CKAN events. Two, I guess, that were part of the IODC. One in my hometown of Ottawa in Canada, one in Madrid, and a third event that was in Oakland as part of Code for America. And we should do more of these things. I think these are great. Nothing really replaces in-person events like this. So unfortunately, that not everybody could be at these events, including some of our friends and colleagues in Ukraine. That's these people that really are without the peace and security they deserve. I wish Stephen was here. He could really put some color to that statement. He would have a lot more to say on this. But for me, I'm just going to say, let's do more of these. It's amazing that you could all be here. And next time, let's try to do it all together.
Thanks. Yeah, I won't add much to that. Thanks for being here. I think it's hard on such a beautiful city, beautiful day. So we'll try to make it count. Welcome again. We've put together this agenda. There's very different profiles here. People that are more familiar with CKAN, less familiar with CKAN. So bear with us if you already know some of this stuff. But we'll start with a short, very high-level overview of CKAN, just to give some examples of the features it has, some examples of usage, but also the community around it. I think one of the goals of this session is that to rope you in and get involved in the community if you're not part of it again. And to highlight this community, we have some great talks with members of the community that will present anything from the custom site they've been working on to some cool extensions, some other stuff. We'll have a short break later. Then the folks at the University of Pittsburgh and ddatHere will present us with the POST program and what it means for CKAN. It's an NSF program to increase the sustainability of open source projects. And to wrap up, Ian and I will present you the main threads that are being worked on in terms of features and what can we expect in terms of new versions and stuff. And if we have time left, we'll open the floor, of course. But if we don't have time, or for whatever reason we don't cover what you came here to ask or whatever, we will be here for the rest of the conference. So please grab us and ask away, both Ian and myself or any other CKAN experts which are hiding in the public. Anything else before we start? Toilets are there. The session is being recorded. If someone has a problem with that, I mean, you're not being recorded, but if some of the speakers has a problem, let us know. And let's dive into it. Please come in. It's hard to start somewhere because it's a wide topic, but I just put there like the 4 main points of CKAN from my perspective. First of all, what it is. If you don't know, it's a data management system. It is built to build data portals to manage data and metadata. I will say the main focus from an architecture point of view is that it's built to be extensible and customizable and to be easy to integrate with other systems with the API. So CKAN works best when placed with other things. It is open source, not just in the sense that the source code is available somewhere online, but in the sense that it's maintained by a community of stakeholders. And it's a mature project. I think next year we will celebrate the 20th anniversary. A couple of years ago, it was designated a digital public good by the UN. And over the years, it has built a healthy community of users, contributors, and service providers. I say healthy, of course, there are sustainability challenges. We don't have unlimited resources to do whatever you want, but this is the case with most community-led open source projects. And I think that CKAN has a really strong base of a community of users to tackle these challenges. So to give the CKAN tour, this will be super quick and I won't use any slides. I'll use the live thing because CKAN never fails. So that's a reassurance. That's what you get in a standard CKAN install. It's not much to look at. It has a somewhat dated UI that we are replacing very soon. But of course, it's just a web application. It's written in Python using Flask and a bunch of libraries which are very well known and supported, like SQL Alchemy and Jinja. It uses other stuff like Postgres and Redis. But basically, all the technology that it uses is industry standard, very well supported open source project, so nothing esoteric in terms of technology. But of course, most CKAN sites don't look like that. They will look something like this, like the National Open Data Portal of Canada. And we started with the government portals because that was the original main use case for CKAN. And over the years, many administrations have adopted it to serve the open data portal. There's Canada and the US in North America, but also, I don't know, put some examples here, Australia, Ireland, I think Europe, there's Germany, Switzerland, Finland. Americas, we have Argentina, there's Japan, there's many different national portals. And of course, all levels of government, provinces, all the way down to city councils like Barcelona, or government departments like the NHS in England. CKAN has been widely adopted on kind of this area. But CKAN wasn't designed narrowly with this focus or use case. So over the years, it has been adopted by many other organizations. Just to give some examples, it's widely used among UN agencies, like here's the Humanitarian Data Exchange maintained by OCHA, but it's also used in UNHCR, WFP, the FAO, in many other UN agencies. Research centers, the museum in London, it has a CKAN Power data portal that has been going on for many years and has a lot of cool customizations. Universities, I think it's Manitoba here, they're using it to publish data following FAIR principles as well. And also, the private sector has been adopting CKAN more and more. Anything from pharmaceuticals, real estate, energy management, like on this case. It's harder to get like screenshots or examples of this because they tend to be internal portals for private data, but of course CKAN can be adapted and customize it to work like that. And of course, besides all that, there's also community instances which are maintained by civic tech organizations, like in this case, Justice Hub, maintained by, I think it's called Civic Data Lab in India, or we have Open Africa, maintained by our friends at Code for Africa, etc. But basically, as you can see, all these sites and different organizations have some common data management needs, but then CKAN has enough flexibility to be extended and customized to adapt it to different domains or areas. In terms of features, let me just very quickly mention some of them. We'll use this site, which is a fairly standard site, very close to what CKAN looks without customizations. Besides homepage or about page or whatever, that will be, of course, adapted to each organization. We have, for instance, a search page. It's pretty basic on a catalog. CKAN provides all the built-in functionality with filters that you can customize. You can enable extra functionality like this date range thing via plugins. But essentially, CKAN allows you to search by any of the metadata fields of a data set, so the fields that describe the data set, and that can be customized by publishers to ensure that people find the right data. And once they find it, the dataset page contains all the data information, so the information about the data, what we call metadata. On the dataset, CKAN has a really strong emphasis on metadata management, where essentially it allows you to define one or multiple schemas for the site, which the schemas are basically the collection of rules that will decide how data should be described, what fields should be in there, what data types should be defined with, whether if they need to use control vocabularies for the field values, or if there's any kind of custom business logic that needs to be implemented, that can also be implemented. And that allows to build like robust and very well described data systems on top of it. Then CKAN also helps this metadata that publishers agree to work on with the same kind of format, then to expose it on different formats, so to make the catalog interoperable with others. So on that front, we've done a lot of work with, for instance, DCAT, which is a standard to expose metadata in a way that is interoperable between catalogs. So there's been a lot of work on that, but also more recently, other standard formats like Rosanne from an organization called ML Commons, which is specifically geared or tailored towards machine learning data sets. So we've been trying to not only support exposing your metadata as this format in CKAN, but also try to map it to DCAT so publishers can use both, or implement features in CKAN that are missing in order to fully implement and expose all these metadata formats. Besides metadata, which I would talk a lot, as you can tell, is something that I really like it. There's all the other kind of features that you will expect on a data management system, like anything authorization and access control, activity streams to track changes on the data, file uploads, tagging, etc. And if I had to mention another feature in CKAN on the actual kind of data front, one of the most used features and more powerful is data store, which is a data repository where the contents of tabular data files like CSV or Excel are imported, or you can push data directly to it via the API. And then from this repository, CKAN provides a structured API to access it in a consistent way. And this allows to build things like the data previews that are shown here, or hook into external data visualization platforms like Power BI or Tableau, build third-party apps, etc. So CKAN stops being just a catalog and starts being more like a platform for building things on top of data. And in terms of features, I won't go through any of this, but basically, if anything is not provided by CKAN itself, there's probably a plugin somewhere that does it, or does it something similar, and maybe you can adapt it because it's open source. And if you have to build something from scratch, then CKAN has a lot of hooks, plugin hooks and interfaces where you can hook into and modify the custom the core behavior to build custom stuff on top of it. And I won't go through more features, but before I shut up, I wanted to come back to the slides and yes, please. I just wanted to quickly go through a bit on how the project is set up and how the community looks like, besides like the actual technical parts of it. And CKAN was originally started and developed at the Open Knowledge Foundation, which is an organization that kind of pioneered the open data movement back in the early 2000s and 2010s. And as part of the whole set of tools and licenses and new kind of frameworks that were needed to push open data forward at that point, one of these tools was CKAN. And it started gaining popularity around 2010, where it was adopted by sites by data.gov.uk in the UK and then data.gov in the US. And then there was kind of a big explosion of usage around 2011, 2012, 2013. And up until that point, all the development and maintenance had been done by Open Knowledge. But then at this point, Open Knowledge kind of changed the governance structure to allow other stakeholders to join and contribute, but more importantly, to have a say on the direction of the project. So the actual governance has changed over the years, but what we have now basically is Open Knowledge acting as the custodian of the project assets like trademark and domains and whatnot. There are two project stewards that help with things like setting strategy or fundraising or high-level things. They're currently Link Digital and Datopian, two of the main commercial services providers. And then there's a tech team that is responsible for maintaining the code base and the contributions. There's around 8 of us right now, but with different degrees of availability, of course. And then we have a great comms team that helps with the social channels and organizing the events, which I will mention in a second. All our development is done in the open. Code is on GitHub. The different repositories, the docs are also public. Most discussions are done on GitHub, on the different repos themselves, on issues and discussions, and everybody is welcome to join there. We have a chat on Gitter, which is basically a matrix room. There's a monthly newsletter where the comms teams post together what's going on with the project. And we have a really cool monthly event, which are the community calls, where there's a deep dive on one particular topic or a particular site, or lighting talks about different extensions and stuff. So I encourage you to join if you haven't done so yet. And then we will have weekly meetings, the tech team, which we discuss incoming pull requests and issues and stuff, but they're open to everybody. And we basically open the floor so people can ask away things like how to implement a feature or a doubt they have around CKAN or just say hi. So different ways to interact with the community. It's a fairly active one. And from that community, we ask people that wanted to present today. So we have 5 great presentations lined up. And first, Andres is gonna present us their experience with the new CKAN site, the NRC one. Guilio will talk us about statistics and CKAN, probably. Eric will show us a new superset extension to work on visualizations. Daniella will talk us about PortalJS, a frontend that can be used on top of CKAN. And Joel, blazing fast automagical metadata. Andres, you want to start first, please? ¿Quieres que ponga algo de...?
La página de la Open Knowledge directamente porque el privado así que no puedo compartir mucho. Perfect. Thank you, guys. I am Andres Vasquez
from the Open Knowledge Foundation. Thank you, people, for this presentation, and thank you all the people that organizes this event. I will talk real quick about a real-life experience with a CKAN instance. This is an example from the Norwegian Refugee Council, which is an organization that works with refugees all over the world. I cannot share anything from the portal because, as Adria mentioned before, there are some internal portals. They use it internally to share data inside the organization. But this is a really good exercise to know how a CKAN instance in real life works. This presentation is about extension. The perspective is about which extension you will usually use in a CKAN instance. And I categorize the extension regarding how much change do we need to apply. I think this is a good approach because the first extension are the one that you don't need to do anything usually. For example, PDF view, I don't think anyone changed this extension in years just to update. The geo view, the hierarchy, the harvester. And in this presentation, I will change at the end. You will usually can ask me question, but I have question and I really appreciate the audience here. So I will also start some question. If you want, we can debate it later. One extension that we use and we did not change is one that we developed called push error. Is one extension that allows you, if any 500 internal error rises, we post to someone else telling about the error. And my first question for you audience is, how do you handle this kind of error usually? Because it is not easy. Amazon, Azure, and Google do not have, in my point of view, a really good way to share a specific error with developer. The second category, some extension that require small fixes. One of them is one extension called announcements, that this is also for OKF. This extension allows you, it's really new, that's why we usually need to apply some changes. This is an extension that show the whole user an announcement or some kind of notification for all users. And another extension, this is funny because it's called facet collapse. It's a really silly extension that just allow you to collapse hold the facet in the dataset page. And I realized working on this presentation that I am the only person that applied change to that extension in the last 4 years. So I am unexpected maintainer of that. So my second question is anyone using the facet collapse extension? The third category, sometimes you want to use an extension and you need to apply changes, but there is nobody in the other side, or you need to wait long for a response, so you need to fork it. So the third category is extension that you need to fork. One of them is the SAML2 extension. This is a really good extension for single sign-on. It's from Keitaro. It's a really good extension, but since we did not get any response, we start a fork, and they now recover maintenance, so we will need to resync. So maintaining a CKAN instance sometimes means that. Another use case is the data pusher here from Joel. We fork it, and then they do a really good work releasing a new version, so we will need to resync again. And the most relevant part is when you realize that you need to create a new extension. So for this CKAN instance, we will need to create 2 extensions. One of them is really easy. It's called CKAN dashboard, and is to embed Power BI and Tableau visualization. It's really easy to use, and just do that and do it well. And the most relevant extension, I think, for this project, and the most funny to develop was an extension called API tracking, because the client want to know exactly what API tokens are in use with the name of the token and the user that is using it. And with that excuse, we realized that the user also want to have some kind of dashboard with the data. And we realized that internally, CKAN already have a stats plugin in the CKAN core, which is not really in use. I mean, it have no more changes lately, but this is a really important internal plugin because it show very relevant data. From one side, we have the stat internal CKAN core plugin, and in the other hand, we have the tracking internal plugin in the CKAN core, which tracks in an anonymous way the usage of the platform. And these two plugins are not related. And we think it's a really good idea. The stat extension is really good, but you cannot extend it to add more relevant dashboard. So we start a new extension to mix these two things. One is to display relevant data, and we are just reusing everything that the stat internal plugin already has, which we think is really valuable. And we add all the tracking information to the same stats, and we allow another extension to extend this data. And we realized that we are not tracking a lot of internal user activity. Remember, this is an internal portal, and we care about tracking what users are doing. So my third question will be, beside the activity internal CKAN core plugin, are you using anything else to track what users are doing with your CKAN instance? And I think we are done. That was fast. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Note down these questions. Next up, we have Giulio. Do you want me to load any website? Or
That microphone is on the
yes, of course.
Okay.
I think it's on. Oh, wow. I usually speak very loud, so I hope I don't crash the microphone, but in that case, it's not my fault. Thanks for welcoming me. I am somehow an invader in this community. I'm not from the CKAN community so much. I come from the other half of the open data world. I come from the Pacific. I come from an organization called the Pacific Community. We are something akin to UN, but with a regional focus. We are the main technical and statistical and research transnational organization in the Pacific. And we have two quite linked data portals that share the name, making things very confusing. My side of the world is called the That's better. What's going on? Is internet working? Yeah. Okay, so I start with the CKAN side of the world, and then we transition to the SDMX. So in the Pacific, we have a lot of high quality and messy as well data that we liberate through the Pacific Data Hub. This is a nice maintained CKAN world with a number of interesting topics. I don't know these so much. My side comes from the SDMX world, so the .stat Data Explorer, which seems to be down, which is great. But so the SDMX is a different format for open data. It is also very commonly used by a lot of transnational organizations, international banks, national statistic offices. Differently from CKAN, it is very highly opinionated in terms of what the data should look like. It's built around three main concepts of a dimension, an attribute, and a measure, and tries to enforce a certain way of thinking and modeling data. And what we do is linking okay. So we do link this SDMX word into CKAN through the usage. The usage of data packages. So especially for things like the Sustainable Development Goals, we have country packages that collect a lot of queries to SDMX API calls. So all of these are built as specific calls to a certain API, which incredibly it works, although the Data Explorer doesn't work. So when we have that, we can get some up-to-date data with quite a bit of metadata. So SDMX is very opinionated about metadata and tries to be rich in provenance and structure, and tries to make easy to reuse code lists and try to make things interoperable across different organizations. The way all of this is handled is through a rather small trick. Look, somebody already explored, so that's great. And pdh don't start CKAN, that should be enough. So we have a harvester for CKAN that comes into this open access CSV hosted on our GitHub, and we do define a number of CSV API calls to our SDMX API endpoint. And this is very easy for our less technical people to actually operate. It's just trying to make sense of a lot of data, which makes these data packages available. And this works. It's very basic, but this makes a curated collection of data set coming from our live SDMX. So in SDMX, data is flowing, stands for statistical data and metadata exchange. So the idea is that all data packages are often updated, and the fact that the CSV resources in the CKAN side of the world are actually built on the fly by pulling from the SDMX API means that the data is always as fresh as possible. And we are having a very nice interoperation between the CKAN side and the currently down, which I discovered right now, Pacific Data site, which I will try one last time. Nope. Okay. This is going to be a challenge for the next presentation. Thank you so much.
Stop sharing.
This might take a minute to set up. We've got to switch laptops and share screens and stuff.
Stop sharing.
Sure. Yeah, actually, I'll probably just sit down because I have to run this. Okay.
Share screen.
I am. That's my desktop. So if I hit play, this should work. And I am sharing, so I think we're good. Hi, I'm Eric, and I work at Derilinx, and I'm going to show you ckanext-superset. And this is a extension that we put together to integrate CKAN and Apache Superset. So if you're not familiar with Superset, it is essentially an open source version of Power BI or Tableau, where you have a bunch of potential graphing operations that run across whatever data sets you want to pull into it. And since CKAN has a data store and we have a lot of data, we thought, hey, we should tie this together. We built this off of data store. The intention is to provide a admin or editor level ability to provide visualizations for data sets so that when they come to us, we can say, here's what you do, rather than, well, we can build this thing, because us building it doesn't really scale. We intended to have this be cross-resource, cross-data set. So if you have the data in CKAN, you should be able to pull this all together and make it work in Apache Superset. Right now, we're aiming this for editors. We don't feel it's really all that usable for untrained users. So the general public has not actually been introduced to this yet, but that is kind of we might do this in the future. So we've run this down on a couple different sites. There's our energy data info site where we have a set of groups. One of them is electricity planning model, where the World Bank has some very convoluted Excels where we're pulling out a couple sheets from them. And for each one of these data sets for, I guess you can see Morocco and Namibia on screen, we pull out some data from an Excel spreadsheet, stick that into the data store, and then all of those sites have, or all of those data sets have an associated dashboard for them. We've also done and put this on the front page for opendata.cro.ie. This is Ireland's company's registration office. It is a high value data set in European terms. So we are supposed to, we as Ireland is supposed to publish it and make it available to the public so that they can see what the registration of the companies is and what trends are coming off of that. We are actually getting queries from the CRO. When the Prime Minister has a question, they ask us, what's going on in your data set? And we are answering that with some private dashboards in Superset. And now I'm going to do a quick demo here. So hopefully I can just stop this and switch over to Chrome. And okay, so I'm going to be I can't actually see my cursor except in lag, so this is going to be an interesting demo. So I'm going to do a quick superset dashboard here. I think hopefully we don't get demo demons. So we have a visualize button up in the corner here. This is just a, oh my God, this lag is amazing. So this is a basic data set where we have a bunch of cycle count. We have a bunch of cycle counters, and I'm not going to be able to do this. Okay, there's a time, and let's just try to do this really. Let's see, I'll get Richmond Street 2. I'm going to save this, and obviously you can change titles and stuff, and then take this. Let's try reloading this. Oh, I forgot that part. Let's do this line chart. Okay, sorry, I got to redo this. I'm looking at this from the wrong angle. I did this wrong. Get the dimensions, update chart. There we go. Okay, we have a chart. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this. And I'm going to call it demo. And I'm going to add this to the CSV conf dashboard. And to do, there's my tab. Okay, so if I reload this, I added something to this earlier with a little bit more like an interesting plot. So I'm going to drag this out. I think I could have used that mouse we were looking for. So now we can save this. We've updated our dashboard, and now I'm going to go add this to a data set. And I'm going to put this in the cycle counts DCC, and I'm going to link it as a public one. So we can also link it as a user dashboard. So if I go in and do it as a user dashboard, only I see that. So this is how we can possibly do this for the public and not wind up hosting a bunch of crud, because only the logged in user who can see that or who made it can see it, and as well as admins. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to this cycle counts data set, and we look at the dashboards, and I just clicked badly. Go back. Okay, so here we have the dashboard on our page, and that's basically the demo I wanted to show you guys. Thank you. We do have a couple other places where this can show up. We have put a couple tags into CKANX pages so that if you are writing a sort of long form story about your data, you can embed these into pages or obviously the home page, and it shows up anywhere you can use Markdown, which is kind of cool. And finally, I want to show you this like really cool little demo daemon. Shoot. I think I just lost my share. Okay, I'm not going to show you the demo daemon. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, give me 1 second.
Is it from a link? Just because yes, I did it. Okay, thanks. Yeah,
It's the user.
the link. Yes. Great. Thank you. Just thank you. Yeah, don't worry. We're gonna be quick. I hope. But yes, you can still give me sign. Okay, let's see. Yeah, you can see the screen. You can hear as well. Awesome. Hello, everyone. My name is Monica. That's Daniella. We're from Datopian. And we're going to talk today about PortalJS and how it helps CKAN thrive in a nutshell. Okay. But I don't know if they can hear me. Cool, great. Okay, in terms of today's agenda, what we're going to do, it looks like a lot, but we're going to be fairly quick. Introduction and acknowledgement. We're going to go through the CKAN strengths. Some of you know about them, some of you not really. The challenge we want to talk about, why PortalJS and CKAN is better, and then just show some examples and close for today. Before we go into this, we probably want to say 1-2 sentences about Datopian. Again, some of you know about Datopian, some of you don't. So we are passionate about data, and we believe that data is only valuable when it's used. So that's why what we're doing is we're focusing on building data portals and data solutions that are making the data accessible, making the data maintainable and easy to use. Essentially, that's what we're doing. Yeah, and now to briefly talk about CKAN strengths, although Adria covered a lot of these already, but I just want to echo some of them. So CKAN strengths, we already know CKAN has been battle tested and trusted worldwide, which is one of the main things. So you can really trust the tool. It's been around for almost 2 decades now. So it's proven at a wider scale. So hundreds of data portals have been built on CKAN worldwide. Adrian mentioned some of them, UK, US, Canada, Europe, Australia. It's really on a global level. So that's one of the big positive sides. So you can really rely on CKAN, and it's a strong backbone. The second is the open source and community-driven aspect. And here I just really want to take a moment to acknowledge the strong CKAN community that's been powering CKAN for the 2 decades that I mentioned. Without the CKAN community, this wouldn't have been possible. And I realize CKAN is still thriving today because of this core team and these people who've been just putting a lot of effort over the past decades. So I really wanted to say that. That's one of the beauties of CKAN, because it belongs to the community. It doesn't belong to a single company. And it has this strong community to back it up. Third thing, it has this powerful data management backend. Obviously, we saw earlier, it supports structured metadata, powerful APIs, harvesting, workflows, and so on and so forth. I don't need to get into details, but CKAN is flexible enough for open data and also for enterprise research and other types of companies. And I wanted to emphasize on this. Fourth point, extensible and modular. It has this plugin architecture. You can really adopt it to any use case. And the beauty is that you don't need to reinvent the wheel, right? Because you can just adopt it, use already existing extensions, harvesting, theming, authentication, analytics, and so on and so forth. Fifth, API, it's really well documented. API, very stable for search, all of the key actions, easy to integrate with other tools. Also, Adria stressed on this point earlier in his presentation. So it's easy to integrate, and that's the idea as well. So it's working quite nicely with other systems. And it also has a proven vendor ecosystem. As we said, like, it's not just one provider behind. People have options. So that, yeah. As awesome as CKAN is, there is usually challenges, right? And we're going to look into one challenge within this presentation. It's related to the front end mostly. So right now, if an organization wants to make a change to the front end, they need to go to a vendor, be it us or Link Digital, Kitaro, Derilinx, datHere, or some other vendor. And in theory, this sounds good for us vendors, right? It's for every little change we can get paid. But We don't think that's a winning strategy because it just creates friction. It makes CKAN less adopted, or it makes it less competitive compared to other tools like Open Data Soft, for example. It makes it just more difficult for people to use it. So the challenge I've described in 3 bullet points. First one being that it's tightly coupled to the backend. As the ones familiar with CKAN, from all of you, they know that it's tied to the backend. So in order to make significant change, one needs to be familiar with Jinja templating. They need to be familiar with the CKAN plugin system. They need to know Python, which is not very common generally. At least not many people are familiar with CKAN who don't work with that. And this really creates a limitation for developers. Second thing, it's not very modern by today's standards, and that's not my subjective experience. Adria showed briefly what it looks like when you install it. Yeah. So the clients nowadays are expecting something more modern, something more sleek, something more user-friendly, and that's not exactly what it looks like. And lastly, there is the vendor dependency that I briefly mentioned. Because CKAN requires expertise in order to be edited, organizations are often dependent on a vendor. And while we could benefit from this, as I mentioned, it just creates friction, as clients might actually prefer to use some other tool at the end. They might not even go with CKAN because it will be very difficult for them to make any changes. Okay, so I also included some examples, but they don't seem to be updated in the presentation, so we can probably try to show at the end. Now I just briefly wanted to go into why PortalJS plus CKAN is better. And I've listed 4 points. It has microservices architecture. Frontend is completely separated from the backend. You can apply changes independently, which has a lot of benefits. So the backend does the heavy lifting, CKAN does the heavy lifting in the backend, and the frontend is being taken care of by PortalJS for the beautiful presentations. Second, you have more control, so it's more open for developers, both from the client side, but also from our side, because it's more common, like we have a wider pool of talents, because more developers are actually familiar with the React, JavaScript React, and this is what's the main technology behind. But it's also better for the clients because they can have these people in-house and they can make changes themselves, and nowadays people have more control. Third, it's fast. It's flexible, it's modern, it makes it super easy to build beautiful feature-rich dashboards, visualizations, maps, and so on and so forth. And literally within a few quick clicks, you can spin up your data portal. It's free, you can test, you can use it. You're gonna see, and it's, as I said, much faster than hacking CKAN templates. It also strengthened CKAN's appeal, which I think is our main point today. When prospective clients are comparing CKAN with other tools, CKAN plus PortalJS is a little bit more attractive because of this front-end part. So we believe that this is actually helping CKAN in the big picture. And I think that's the main point we want to make today. And here on the slides, we've created 3 layers. So basically, when it comes to decision making, before somebody decides to use CKAN, first of all, they need to make a decision. What do I need in my company, right? I mean, they need to come to the conclusion they need a data portal in order to actually start looking for a solution. So they have a pool of options. So first they come to the conclusion, I need a data portal. Then they start looking for different solutions. What is out there? Open Data Soft, Socrata, CKAN, DKAN, blah, blah, custom solutions. And only after that, they go to this third layer, the vendor part. Datopian, Kitaro, Derilinx, datHere, Link Digital, and so on and so forth. There are a lot of vendors. I'm just going to minimize this. I don't know what this is. So what I want to emphasize is today, what we're focusing on is the second layer, right? We believe PortalJS is actually making CKAN more competitive in the second layer, where it's competing with the other tools out there. And the broader point we want to make is we all win when CKAN wins. And a little bit more context is that we're talking about all of this just because there's a bit of a tension out there when it comes to creating new tools which are complementary to CKAN, like CKANito has been mentioned, PortalJS, and so on and so forth. And I really just want to say this is helping. It's complementary. It's not really competing. That's the main thing. And here, yeah, I don't think we have a lot of time, but since we're talking about the tool, we might as well show you at least the open, so at least you can see what it looks like. It's very easy to get started. You can sign up just by filling a form. It's very easy to use. I don't know, it doesn't load. I don't know why it doesn't load, but anyways, you basically just fill out one form, you click on sign up, and you log in, and there you go. You can create your front end. There is a template and ready to use components that you can use. I don't know, I'm not sure if we have time right now. If we have, we can at the end or maybe later. We're actually hoping to have some more time to talk about all of this in the next few days, but we'll see. There's also a link if you want to explore some real life examples. Before we wrap up, there's one call to action that I just want to drop in the space, and that's basically, please use it, test it. It's more important for us that people try it out in their projects, try to integrate it, use it, report issues, give feedback, just let us know about your experience. Let us know if it's helpful, because that's the main point. We want to know if this is helping people. We want to keep improving it, and this only happens by people trying it out. That's why it's for free. You can do it really quickly. That was one of the points. So yeah, just please use it and report back how it goes. And we need to close because I can sense the time pressure and Adria's bad faith. So just to say, when it comes to closing, the main point we wanted to make is we all win when CKAN wins, and we really believe that PortalJS helps us grow the pie instead of shrinking it. So as Monika said, just feel free to explore and use it and make CKAN even more attractive this way. Because when this wins, we all win. Thank you. There were some examples, but I don't know why they're not here. Never mind. Okay.
Thank you. Give you some time when there's like 2 minutes left. Okay, let me try to make this quick. We have a lot of material to cover. My name's Joel. I'm here with my co-founder, Sammy. We've been doing CKAN and open data for 15 years now. And in all those years, we found so many problems. We've deployed close to 100 data portals across the US. And as you know, I don't need to talk about this. The thing is, we found across all those implementations that they can't assume anything about the data. And what we found is you always have to clean it, right? And for people in the know, there's this whole new phenomenon of findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable data. Now, this actually came from the science domain because of the crisis in reproducibility of research, but it has become something much more common now in data governance. And like Adria and Ian mentioned before, there have been a lot of efforts in terms of inculcating it into the architecture of CKAN with the cat3 and croissant, right? But we also want to introduce into the conversation the concept of open data as a verb. Right? We're familiar with open data as a noun, but we should try to inculcate it as ourselves. How do we open the data? We open the data by contextualizing it, humanizing it, making high quality, high resolution metadata, and making it useful, usable in use, not just for humans, but for machines as well, now in the age of AI. Right? We have a big blog post about this. We've been talking about this for a while. So metadata is key. And we, in our experiments, we found that sometimes, we have this big, when we install the data portal, we will have this big surge of data. We will create all these ETL tools, and then the data doesn't get updated right after the launch. Because oftentimes the complaint is, oh, it's too hard to maintain the metadata. They have to enter it all manually. So we thought we need to make this automatic, or what we call automagical. We do by production of metadata. So you automatically get high quality metadata, high resolution. So your catalog can be the central source of truth. And at the same time, you don't have to store everything in the data store. You can just leave it in place, have a sample in the data store, and just point to the source, and prioritize making it both machine and human readable. And like Andreas, since everybody mentioned here, CKAN started as a transparency initiative, but now with data governance and data management being something that people realize they need to do, we also find this pattern of doing internal data portals, or what we call data exchanges. So what we also found is for people to care about, for the data stewards to care about the data they publish. Oftentimes in the early days of open data, it was seen as an unfunded mandate. Another extra thing I need to do beyond the work I have to do on a day-to-day basis. So we said we need to make producing high quality open data and metadata a natural byproduct of them doing their day-to-day work. So that's why we now a pattern when we do deployments is we emphasize you need to have an internal data portal where you do your ingestion management and sharing and cleaning and approval process. And the external data portal, the classical data portal, is just the publishing side. And then as you can see from this triangle, operational data, it's green because you use it for day-to-day use. It has PII data. It has data that's not meant to be shared. It has, business practice data, and only a tiny piece is exposed to the public, right? Or to your partners. So this is the pattern we all do now when in our CKAN deployments, is we have this operational data exchange that publishes to the partner portal. One other fear that we found that data stewards have is they have this fear of a fat finger mistake. They accidentally publish something with data that they're not supposed to publish, right? So we, by having this separation of concerns, remove that concern that they don't accidentally publish sensitive data because there's an explicit publishing process. So yeah, this is what we're trying to do with this fair data factory. But like I said, opening data is hard if you do it the old-fashioned way, and we automated it a bit because of the guidance I got that we should not spend too much time. I have a big clip here. So this is a familiar CKAN interface, adding a data set. Here's our classical 311 data set that we always use. Then upload that data set. This is what we call the upload first workflow. And let me pause it here. The thing I want to show you here, oops, let me try that again. how do you pause? There you go. Oh no. How do you pause? Yeah, it's not pausing. Yeah. I can drag. There you go. I can just drag. So here is one thing. If you're familiar with the CKAN interface, typically what you have is the reverse. You enter the metadata, and then you upload the data. But with that process, that assumes that you know what to enter, right? But now with the ascent of these new metadata standards, if you have read the specifications, they are very specific. They're very detailed. They are calling well beyond the doubling core properties. You know, they're not asking just for description tags, who is a data steward. They're asking for all kinds of things like what's the spatial extent, what's the periodicity, you know, how often is this updated, you know, hundreds of properties. So if with the old DCAT standard, people are not maintaining their metadata, what do you think will happen if you ask them to enter several dozen more metadata properties? Nothing, right? So we need to automate it. So what we are doing is we're automating it by, as you see, you'll have to take my word for it here. Like you see here, the spatial extent, it pre-calculated that because it recognized and see the description, it created a suggestion. I'll have to pause this again. So what's happening here is with the Data Pusher Plus that Andreas mentioned, is we have this data ingestion process where we infer all the metadata beforehand, but instead of hard coding it in, we offer them as suggestions. So we always have a human in the loop, a data steward in the loop. So the data steward doesn't start with a blank sheet, right? And also you notice there that we have descriptions, free-form descriptions and tags. Those are being offered by a local language, large language model, where we send not all the data, we just send the summary statistics and the frequency distribution, and we ask the LLM to make a draft description, then the steward can change. I can show that later afterwards. Another thing that we did, again, we were fortunate to have Texas as a customer. They've been funding a lot of open source work, like the Data Pusher Plus and the DRUF. Is they also funded this work with Gazetteer. Adria, this should be close to your heart. And to point to the Popova sisters about the modern interface, one of the things that people care about is location, right? And typically in the old-fashioned way, we have to put in the spatial extent manually. Earlier, you saw we were pre-calculating the spatial extent and inserting it in the field as a suggestion. But still, you need the user still needs to be able to manage that spatial metadata using a map-based interface, of course. So we built this one for Texas. As soon as we finish with it, we will open source it and share it with the community. And there's a blog post on there too, if you want to find out. Another thing that we've been dreaming about, Sammy and I, since we started, is what we've been calling the People's API. You know, API for developers, application programming interface. It's just for us geeks to talk to programs to get data. But what if I can have my grandmother ask, you know, what do you do? I cannot tell pointers or something, right? Even if I go to data.gov, even if I go to the data portals, we have to be honest with ourselves. The main audience for those portals are not regular people. They're data scientists, they're data geeks like us, statisticians, librarians. How do we democratize it so that people can ask questions and get answers? So yeah, we have some experiments we did. The thing that in Data Pusher Plus that I showed you that infer the description and the tags, that was powered by, we also built a tool called the QSV. And there's a thing there that we built, Describe GPT, and what it does is it gets all these metadata, 40 plus summary statistics, frequency distribution of the data, and then there's some detailed prompt guidance. We tell it, oh, you're a statistician, you're an expert library scientist, and you're an expert in SQL. And then if somebody asks a data question, and we tell the LLM, if the question cannot be answered using summary statistics and the frequency distribution, draft a SQL query to answer it. So the beauty of that approach, of this RAG approach, is then you remove the hallucination, right? Because SQL is deterministic and reproducible. And we integrated for now with DuckDB and Polars. Ultimately, we will integrate it with PostgreSQL and the CKAN data store. So people, typically right now, when you go to the resource view in CKAN, you have the grid, right? Showing the data so you can explore it. We want the ability for people to ask, if I'm looking at, oh, if I'm looking at, say, the 311 complaints of New York City, what's the breakdown of the most common complaint types by borough, by year, by month, and then it will translate it into a SQL statement. And if that SQL statement can execute, it will just execute it and give you the answer, or if not, let me just show you the output of that quickly. Oh, no network. Okay, just you can see that later, but you can see, maybe I can show you quickly this one. I don't know if you can see this. So this is I asked it to compile the data dictionary. So it compiled the data dictionary using the statistics, and it drafted the description. And apart from drafting the description, it also compiled notable characteristics. This is all meant to be tuned by the data steward, by the custodian, and then even some tags that they can use if they want to use in the data set. And for a question, here's a question that I asked that cannot be answered using summary statistics and frequency distribution. It actually created this very complex SQL, and the reasoning behind how it decided to do that SQL. Okay, I'll leave it there for now. Just one more thing, one more thing. Oh no. Well, no more thing. Yeah, I get the hook. Thank you.
Okay, yes, clearly we should have booked more time because these presentations have lots of content. There's very interesting stuff, but I'm sure everybody that has presented is going to be hanging around and find them afterwards and talk to them about this. Right now, we're going to take a short break. If we come back here at past, which is I think about 7 minutes or something, that'll give us a chance to get out of the room for a little bit, and then we'll finish up everything. So thank you, everybody. Okay, maybe if we get started, people that are out in the hallway might find their way back in. Do one more pass. The problem is it's nice and cool out there, but it's kind of a little hot in this room. Beautiful room, though. You ready to go? Okay, great. Well, take it away. Tell us about how Pose has helped make all of this possible. And yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to Ian and Adria for the invitation to share a bit about this project, which is based at the University of Pittsburgh and at datHere, and is funded by the National Science Foundation. So we wanted to share a little bit about the goals of the project and also about this grant opportunity and ways that we are focused on growing community around CKAN through this work. So as mentioned, this project is led by folks at the University of Pittsburgh and specifically at the Western Pennsylvania Regional Data Center, which is a local open data portal based in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, that hosts government data sets and runs on CKAN. And the Western PA Regional Data Center collaborated with datHere during the installation. I myself am at the School of, I didn't even introduce myself, I'm so sorry. It's just, my name's Nora Mattern, and I'm here with my colleagues Joel and Sammy, who are representing this project. I'm a librarian by training and have worked with the Western Pennsylvania Regional Data Center, but am at our School of Computing and Information. So just quickly, and we'll be brief with an opportunity to chat more, and we really would appreciate the discussions as we move through CSV Conf. We just wanted to share a little bit about this program, the shape of this grant opportunity through the NSF, and talk a bit about two grants that we've received through this particular program, and then share a bit about some community-focused project activities. So what is POSE? This is a U.S. federal grant opportunity. It's supported by the National Science Foundation. POSE itself stands for Pathways to Enable Open Source Ecosystems. And it's quite interesting. To me, it's interesting the areas that could be funded under this particular program. The NSF was not interested in providing funding for technical development of open source software, with the exception of development that would support security and privacy. Their focus is really thinking about how to support sustainability of really impactful open source software, and to, as captured here in this last goal, to broaden and grow an inclusive open source ecosystem around a particular product. And I will say our approach has been entirely additive to the really strong ecosystem that already exists within CKAN. There's already a rich, as evidenced here, a rich community around CKAN. Our approach with this particular grant program is to provide some support for thinking about sustainability of CKAN, as well as growth of a broadened community of contributors who play different roles. So the NSF provided support for what's framed as a planning grant, and then a grant opportunity that would allow us to actually implement the plan of action. So in the first planning grant, which was a smaller grant, our focus was to learn from folks within the ecosystem. So we were interested in understanding existing workflows. We talked to more than 45 folks, including folks in the room, about CKAN. We had some workshops that really served as listening sessions to understand existing structures within CKAN, and also the community participation. We were focused on understanding shared values within CKAN, which were very clear to us that transparency, obviously open data, open society were shared values within folks in the community. We also learned from the people that we talked to about areas that indeed NSF support could help to grow. So there, we learned that onboarding opportunities, new onboarding opportunities and support, as well as ways to connect with one another, were of interest. And we have documentation from our first project through the through our website, which maybe there will be an opportunity to share these slides. So the second phase is focused on actually implementing things that people said they were interested in seeing. We do have one goal related to sustainability and developing a plan for sustainability. That's something that's ongoing. We were interested in sharing some of the community-based goals with you today. So the goals that we articulated to the CKAN community, as well as to the NSF, that was that this project would help to develop or further develop onboarding pathways for new contributors, and to welcome, as the NSF is interested in supporting, a broadened set of contributors into the open source ecosystem, develop new structures for community participation. There's already really rich work that's happening there. Joanna does a fantastic job in terms of bringing us together. We, with this project, have been focused on learning from folks in the community other ways that they'd like to connect. And then finally, a goal is to increase adoption of the product and support continued use. So I don't want to we can share these slides. This is a lot of content, but we are working to develop some resources to help to assist with onboarding new adopters of CKAN. One area that we are working on now is, again, new structures for bringing people together. This is a great example. What Adria and Ian put together, it's a great example of what we heard people want, is an opportunity to connect regionally. So we've held through the second phase some listening sessions this summer that surfaced a number of things that people were interested in seeing, in addition to the CKAN monthly lives and the tech team calls. So there was interest in having themed meetings around a topic of interest that were more discussion based. There was interest in telling more stories about CKAN, affinity groups, again, in-person events, adding social layers on top of CKAN, educational videos and CKAN office hours are just some examples of activities that came up. And then before I turn it over to Joel, another thing that we're focused on, again, is growing adoption and supporting continued use. And that is among the things that we're trying to do there, is to work with the steering committee to think through how to create an ambassador program for CKAN and develop processes for connecting with folks who may not be part of the tech team but may want to come together. I'm going to turn it over to you, Joel, to talk about a project that we think cuts across a number of these areas. So this ecosystem catalog is a project that Joel, Sammy, and others at the Western Pennsylvania Regional Data Center have been working on, that are intended to provide examples of what's possible through CKAN through a catalog of instances. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Nora. So we'll quickly just go to the site. So the whole premise, like Nora mentioned, is to provide scaffolding. And the interest of NSF is not to fund software development. But if the software development will provide technical scaffolding for the community to come together, that is something they support. So we started this ecosystem catalog where if some people in the room, if you look for CKAN extensions, a lot of extensions were mentioned today. There's a site called extensions.ckan.org that catalogs about 400 extensions. It's really not maintained. I used to help maintain it, and I hated maintaining it because it's all manual. It's like the manual metadata curse that data stewards I didn't want to do. So we said, what are we doing there? We are cataloging extensions. What do we have that catalogs things? Oh, we have CKAN. So we built a CKAN site. I mean, I don't want to go through this. Maybe I'll do a demo quickly because of the time constraints. If the mouse cooperates. Oh, there's no network, right? Is there a network? So while this is being sorted out, so there were like, during post phase 1, we did a survey of all the existing sites around the world that we can find. We found about 400 CKAN sites from which we had those 45 interviews. But we decided, hey, why is it difficult to find CKAN sites? They should, if they opt in, we should be able to network these users. We also found that, if we're modernizing the extension catalog, let's also catalog the sites. So that's what we did. So if you go to Civic Data Ecosystem, again, once again, this is still work in progress. So it's not, we haven't really launched this yet. So bear that in mind. So here are all the 649 sites we found so far, but this was all by just looking at sites. There was no magic to it, but we were hoping maybe perhaps there's an opt-in that people can opt in and participate in the site. And then if there's a bug, a CVE, an upgrade, a new extension, they can be proactively notified, right? And then if you go to the ecosystem catalog, we actually found there were more than 300 extensions. We found more than 1,000 extensions and 640, but this is still manual. It just so happens because it's a matter of practice, people name extension ckanext something. So we just look for everything that says ckanext. So there are a lot of forks in there. But what we found too is because, like Andreas mentioned, some extensions, because they reach stability, they're not really updated anymore, right? And some extensions, in the true spirit of open source, somebody built one, they put a license on it because the template for the extension template has a permissive open source license by default. They kind of, okay, they accept that. And then they just leave it running. But then in terms of maintenance, maybe instead of maybe people scratching the same itch, maybe help them find, oh, somebody built a PDF extension already, or somebody built an SSO extension already. Maybe just work that, right? And also in the old extension catalog, now in the age of AI, we summarize what the extension is about in a standard way using AI summaries. And then we extracted all these metadata about the extension on a time series. So you're not seeing it here yet, but ultimately what will happen here is you will see charts of how often that extension is being maintained and how many forks there are. So hopefully we can start giving feedback loops and signals to the community. And we intentionally made the summary very verbose. But then we want self-service too. So if you are the maintainer of ckanext GC Notify, and you join the ecosystem catalog, and we find out you're the maintainer, we will give you editor privileges. So now you can maintain your own entry in the extension catalog. And if there's a question, if you have an active GitHub discussion, we direct people to that GitHub discussion. If you don't, and if you don't want the burden of answering emails, we can redirect that to a discourse where maybe people can help each other. So this is one piece. So using CKAN, we're eating our own dog food. And this is just a start. We hope with opt-ins to register when spinning up a CKAN site, to register when you're developing a new extension, that this becomes like a powerful, amplifier for the ecosystem. Because if you see some successful projects like WordPress, for instance, like if you go look at the third-party plugins, it's almost like it's like a feature of WordPress, and these were all written by third-party people, right? Maybe if we can capture some of that energy, and maybe that we can start with these, but then maybe we can start cataloging stories, cataloging schemas, etc.
Thanks, Joel. And just because I know we're short on time. So the ecosystem catalog is one example of a project that's coming. We're going to be sharing information about, we're going to be proposing to our steering committee, the post-steering committee, the theme discussion meetings with the first focus on storytelling. And one outcome of POSE also is to think about how we can support regional events for the 20th anniversary of CKAN next year, right? It's next year. So we'll keep you posted on that. We'd love to talk more, and thank you for the time.
Yeah, this is. All right. So we've got a little bit of time left. So we're going to talk about some of the features that are coming. And of course, these are forward-looking statements. And so, you can't always, completely, be guaranteed. But these are, many projects that are in active, progress and should be part of the next release or the release following that. So I'd first like to talk about all the work that Serhi has done on files in CKAN. This is big. CKAN has had fairly basic, ways of managing files that you actually upload into the system for a long time. And this implements the ability to track the files on an individual basis and then attach them to objects in CKAN afterwards. So this is very important for things like some of the upload first workflows that have been discussed. It's important for cases where you'd like to audit your storage and see what's in my storage and should that actually be there. It's great for being able to store your files across multiple different backends, depending on what might be the most appropriate thing for that. And it's also going to allow things like migrating files between different providers or from local systems. And it is really going to be an enabler of a number of powerful features in CKAN, and it's really very exciting to see this coming. Much of this work actually already exists in ckanext files as a separate extension, and what this does is it adds this functionality sort of alongside the existing CKAN functionality. But what the new pull requests are doing is really baking this into core because files are so fundamental to so many of the processes, so many of the data workflows. It's important that this is part of the way that everybody is using CKAN, and this will be one of those important features. Next, I can talk about data dictionaries, and this is something that I've been able to work on fairly closely recently. I worked on the original version of the data dictionary feature that's in CKAN right now, which is fairly basic. You can add a few extra fields, customizable extra fields to individual columns that have been uploaded to the data store. But even though it's a fairly straightforward feature, it is very well loved and is used heavily by many CKAN users. But there are more advanced ways of storing data dictionaries. There are great standards like CSVW, JSON schema, data packages, and Croissant, which I've been working on as well, which has been mentioned before as a standard for cataloging machine learning data sets. So having, sort of leveling up CKAN so that it can actually store some of these formats natively and reference them as the way to store additional information about exactly what's in every column of a data set or every table is really going to enable a lot more interesting features, interesting uses of data within CKAN. I'd also, at the same time, like to work on the ability to combine these dictionaries, because it's very common for people to publish data sets in the same shape that of other data sets. So being able to define what the data is supposed to look like in one place and then reuse it in multiple places is going to be a great time saver. And it can also be used for things that aren't what we would traditionally seem or think of as a data dictionary. So for things like defining terminology, or extra information about a data set that might apply to multiple data sets. It's great to be able to have this information linked straight into the resource so that people can have access to it and so it can all be updated in one place. So this is, one of the second future feature.
Okay, I'll take this couple next. Another big thing that is coming is the new theme. Already mentioned that this was long overdue. So the new theme has been developed by a dedicated team of designers and front-end developers. This has had like their own roadmap and team with funds allocated to it. I think we're in the last stages of the project. That's a demo site which we won't go through because we don't have much time. But essentially, this has been a big emphasis on not only making modern and following like the current trends on web design, but also focusing on improving the responsiveness and accessibility, which was something that was lacking on the old theme. And the score it's really core to the goals of CKAN of making data accessible to everybody. A lot of effort has been put into try to make it compatible with the existing templates and design, because of course there's a million of them out there, and we don't want to break all sites at the same time. But yeah, if that's something that interests you, there's links there that you can follow up. And then a major area where there has been work recently as well is the search. Traditionally, search in CKAN has been tightly linked to Solr, which is the software that acted as a search index. And that created problems in that basically the API that we were exposing was the Solr API. Solr is a great product, but maybe not the easiest to maintain or deploy. So people were asking, hey, I just want to use a hosted Elasticsearch provider and forget about the search. At the same time, search was only limited to data sets, but there's tons of other stuff that you might want to search in CKAN, like organizations or the data itself or files or whatever. So we're working on a new kind of search backend that tries to tackle all these different challenges. And the goal is to support different backends. So besides the existing Solr one, OpenSearch, Elasticsearch, hopefully a Postgres one as well, which would remove one of the pieces on the equation on how to maintain CKAN, and for small sites might be enough. We want to provide this common search API to search on different parts of CKAN with the same interface and API to search data sets, organizations, or custom entities that extensions define, like pages or whatever. And the current filtering is quite limited in in the kind of queries that you can define, and we've tried to get around that with providing SQL interfaces, for instance, from the data store, but that opens a whole like can of worms in terms of security and permissions and stuff. So we hope that the new kind of filter interface, which is much more advanced, will cover 90% of queries that people want to do. And at the same time, we are designing it in a way where users can extend like all parts of this process, from providers to create a plugin for a search provider that we haven't considered, an interface to index different kind of stuff that are not data sets or one of the entities provided, or build custom features like the one that we were mentioning about special search or stuff, like how to introduce new parameters to the search or how to change the indexing logic or stuff like that.
Yeah, just wanted to add there. So one of the first places that you might see this is in data store, because many of this type of search is very useful if you could do it as part of the regular search interface. As Adria mentioned, having SQL search is something that's just not possible on some sites because of concerns around performance or security. So this makes it possible to have a more functioning, regular search interface, but it also is actually something that we need for performance of paginating large data sets. If you have data sets with 10 million rows or so, you'll notice that the dump interface that exports the data gets slower and slower as it gets towards the end, and that's because we don't have index-based pagination. And so actually the first implementation for this is likely going to be to implement that index-based pagination for data store, so that just the regular dump feature, it gets faster all of a sudden without having to change anything. And as Adria mentioned, I think one of the really exciting things about this is the ability to shrink CKAN. If you could run CKAN with just Postgres, a lot more people would run CKAN. And so if we have the Postgres search backend for this, I think that makes it a lot easier for people to get in and involved.
Yeah, not much more to add to that. If you're interested, all the development is done on this separate repo that eventually will get merged into CKAN. And to that, actually, just if we can finish by talking about a bit about the next upcoming versions and where we can expect each of these things. And we're currently at CKAN 2.11, which is a fantastic version that everybody should use if they are starting a new CKAN version. The goal here is to have like a new major version, so CKAN 3.0. But to get there, we need to do a couple of steps first. We will have a hopefully last version on the 2.x line, which will pave the way for 3.0. I mean, the exact same things that will go into each version are described there. There will be like an initial phase of the files work included, so plugins can start preparing for the new files backend. The new theme will be available, not as enabled as default yet, but it will be able to be turned on via config options. The data dictionary model we hope to be there, and if there's time, we will start introducing these data store search related features that Ian was mentioned. Timelines are always tricky with CKAN because availability changes a lot, but we have the goal of releasing 2.12 by the end of 2025. So hopefully should be there. And then the real work starts with 3.0, but that should include like all the files war, or at least like the initial version of the file wars, the initial version of the new search. The new theme will be then the default on this version. There's a couple of major features, not in terms of like complexity or like development time involved, but in terms of complexity and how to tackle them regarding extension and simplification of the API, which we don't have to go there, but it's something that we have like put ourselves as requirements for this version. And in terms of timeline for 3.0, we really want to happen it sometime on 2026. Realistically, it should be around the second half, but we will see. If needed, we will, if we can, we will try to avoid it. But if needed, there could be a 2.13 version if we identify major compatibility issues within the two that we want to breach or something. But it's always easy to maintain just one line of versions. And from then on, sky's the limit, I guess. It's 1 o'clock, so we made it. I just want to finish off with the community channels. Please get involved. As you can see, there's a lot brewing, which has not always been the case in the history of CKAN. So we're at an interesting time now where there's a lot of things going on the community side, on the development side. There's a lot of active development. So it's a really good time to get involved. And you will probably find help on the community channels, but if you want to contact Ian or I or myself directly, please feel free to do so. And we'll see you at the rest of the conference. So thank you for attending. Hope that was helpful.
Yeah, and just to say, as it was mentioned, the 20th anniversary of CKAN is an exciting time. If we can, make the stars align and get 3.0 out on the 20th anniversary, that'd be pretty exciting. So yeah, I just want to say thank you, Adria, and everybody for coming.